Hello there and welcome to a new year, first midweek video of 2021. And naturally I'm thinking about the fact that we're sitting here at the beginning of a new year. New Years are always time that we see as a fresh start. We like to make resolutions because it's the beginning of a new year, whether we keep them or not. And so I'm thinking about a time when the children of Israel were standing on the portal of the promised land and they were about to enter in, and God gives them some warnings, some reminders before they enter into the promised land. Deuteronomy 8, I'm not going to turn, you can turn and read, but he's reminding them of how he's led them the previous 40 years in the wilderness and preparing them for going into their promised land. And he tells them that he was testing them to reveal what was in their heart, not to him, but to them. He let them go hungry. He says this to them. He let them go hungry so that he could help them understand that their sustenance and their provision proceeds from him. He tested them to do good for them. He promised them that he was bringing them into a good land. And his overall theme is beware lest you forget. And one of the things we can't do is forget what we learned, and we'll come back to that later on. But he's reminding them of all the things they've gone through, all the lessons they've learned, and they're about to enter into a new day, a new culture, a new economy, and but not to forget where they have been. And there's some lessons we can learn from there, from Deuteronomy 32. There are other, I'm not going to turn to any of the scriptures, but there's lessons we can learn as we enter into a new year and 2021. And on the one hand, putting 2020 behind us. On the other hand, we can't completely forget what's going on behind us. And so one of the things we can do is we can allow the days behind us to be an instruction for the next generation. We can carry instruction to those who are coming after us, the younger generation, and that they could be instructed. And I would say something to the next generation, the young people who are watching this video. I would say to you that don't write off as irrelevant God's blessings and God's dealings with the older generation. The older generation has a lot to offer. Even at my age, I still have some older generation of people that I can learn from and continue to do so. Jesus reminds us in Luke 17 to remember Lot's wife. And of course, Lot's wife was the one who looked back. Don't look back, they said, but she could not resist. And it's obvious that the intent of that was to remind us that she might have left Sodom and Gomorrah with her feet, but she had not left Sodom and Gomorrah with her heart. And as we move into 2021, I'm sure there's not many of you that are trying to hold on to 2020, but there are certain times of the year that you want to hold on to, and turn your face around, and we'll come back to that, but move forward. Remember Lot's wife. And also another thing about remembering Lot is learn from Lot's wife is to learn from others' mistakes. If people around you have failed, have faltered, don't condemn them, don't judge them, help them up, but learn from their mistakes. Don't repeat the same ones. If you're looking at 2021, remember the lessons that you've learned in the past year. Remember what God has taught you. And while you're learning from the lessons that you learned in 2021, release your failures. Every one of us have had failures in this past year. We've made mistakes, and very few of us have only made one. We've had those times when we've erred and we've faltered and we've made misjudgments. We've made bad choices. We've said wrong things. Let those go. Leave them behind. There's no reason to carry them over into 2021. And then in that same vein, you can recall what God has taught you, and especially you can recall the words of the Lord to you, anything that God's spoken to your heart. Jesus in John 16 said, "These things I have spoken to you, so that when your hour comes, you may remember. You may remember that I told you them." And there are, every one of us, last year, 2020, every one of us, at one point or another, we heard God speak something to our, in a still small voice, to our heart and to our insides, and we know it was God. Or God showed us something in the scriptures, and it was illuminated to us vividly, which brings us to Romans 15. Whatever was written in earlier times was written for our instruction, that through preservation and the encouragement of the scriptures, we might have hope. So whatever means that God has spoken to you, either by the voice of His Holy Spirit or the voice of His Holy Spirit through the encouragement of the scriptures, let's recall those words. Don't let those go. Leave your failures behind, but don't let the words of God, don't leave them behind. And while you're here at the beginning of a new year, deal with your regrets. Whatever regrets that you have for 2020, if there's something that can be done, if you can address the ones that you still have control over, but dance on the ashes of those that you can't. Let them go. Whatever your regrets are, just let them go, and move into 2021 with purpose and vigor. This would also be in a similar light. This would also be a good time to deal with forgiveness to anyone who's wronged you, or someone that you might have wronged them. This is a time to enter into a world of forgiveness. And if forgiveness is not giving someone a license to keep doing what they've done, forgiveness is releasing them from the debt they owe you because they have wronged you. And if you don't release them from that debt, you're the one that'll be in prison. You're the one who will suffer. You've heard me say, it's not original with me, that holding unforgiveness and resentment towards someone is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It just doesn't work that way. Whatever dreams that you had last year, whatever visions for your life you had that are unfulfilled, bring them with you into 2021. Don't leave them back there. Don't give up on them, especially if there's something that God was involved. But bring them with you, and ask God to help you see them fulfilled in this year. The main thing we got to do here is that we can't remain in the past. And once again, 2020 is a year that a lot of people don't want to remain in. But sometimes we have glory days, and sometimes we have successes, and we have moments that bring fondness to our heart in our past, and we want to hold on to those. We can't live there. We can't live in the past, and we have to move to the future, because every new day brings a new vision, a new purpose, a new mercy, and we're not able to actually perceive this new thing, this new day, this new vision and purpose. We're not able to perceive it if our residence is still in the past. And it could be that in the past it goes beyond 2020. It could be 2010 or 1995 that you're holding on to something and wishing you could bring that back. I can tell you that if God's in it, He'll bring it back. But let go of the past. Don't live in the past. Learn from the past, but don't live in the past. Look to the future. Look to now, and see what God's doing with you now. What is God going to do with you in 2021? And are you going to be like Daniel? Daniel prayed 3 times a day, and he faced Jerusalem. Why did he face Jerusalem? Because that brought him into a perspective of God and God's city. So you have a great year. This is just the beginning. It's not the end of anything. It's the beginning of something. And may God's blessings be upon you richly as you enter into and proceed through 2021. Happy New Year, and go out there and act like somebody.